No. And we're also checking for officers. Kate Bainbridge and Liam Johnson, can you hear us at all?
Just testing if you can hear us okay. Yeah, I think they can.
Hello, members and officers from the City of Melville. Could you speak into the mic so that you confirm that you can see and hear us?
Yes, I can.
Thank you.
Yes, I can.
Thank you. Officers, can you see and hear us? I can see you. I can't hear you at all yet. Can you speak into the mic again?
City of Melville officers, unfortunately we can't hear you. If you can hear us, you may have a speaker issue on your end. We just can't hear you. Can you hear us?
Yes, we can. I can hear you.
All right. Sorry, thank you. Had to play around with our settings for a little bit. Sorry about that.
That's okay. Now we're all alive together. That's great. Good morning and welcome to today's meeting. I'd like to officially open the meeting at 9:35 a.m. and pay respects to traditional owners and elders past and present on which the land on which this meeting is being held. Members, we are all on both in-person and on electronic means. And for those who are on electronic, if you can have your speakers of your mute on, unless you are speaking. We have one apology for today's meeting, and it's listed in the agenda. We have a full panel for today's meeting in both Part B and C. In today's meeting, Part B, City of Melville, we have Councillor Matthew Little, Councillor Daniel Lim. We have Specialist Member Brian Curtis, Deputy Presiding Member Leo Donoghue. My name is Francesca Panton, Presiding Member. There are no members on leave of absence. Minutes for this STAT meeting will be available on the website. Members, could I have a show of hands if you have duly considered all matters before you in relation to this item? That is unanimous for the minutes paper. Members, are there any disclosures of interest? There are nil disclosures of interest. We will now move to the item. We have a series of presentations, as is the normal case with the MIDAP meetings. We'll deal with presentations as they appear in the agenda. There's a designated 3-minute time frame, and you're encouraged to provide the key elements you wish for us to hear. We have already received all written material. We will deal with presentations as they are listed. At the conclusion of the first 5 presenters, we will go to panel members to ask questions. Following the questions, we will then move to the officers at City, and then we'll come back to questions before moving into the item. We will now move to the first presenter, Hendrik Detroit. And presenters, if you'd like to come up to this and to this table.
Good morning, thank you for your time. Probably my wife can't be here. First of all, both my wife and I want to make it very clear that we are not against this application. And we Mr. Godwin and his partners and the best of luck in their endeavors. However, there's a few issues that we would like to consider. The first one, of course, is the noise factor that's going to arise from the building. Our property is 7 H1 Road, which is immediately south of the property. At the moment, the planned play area, secondary outdoor play area, immediately abuts our property. And in fact, sits 2 meters away from our bedroom on the downstairs and our office area on the upstairs. I noticed that on the documents, it's recorded that the play area is set back a minimum of 12 meters from both eastern and western neighbors, but certainly not from the southern neighbor, which is ourselves. It also abuts our swimming pool area, which is our entertainment area, and outside our lounge area. So we are very, very concerned about the noise. And we would ask Mr. Godwin and his architects if there's any possibility that they could consider moving that play area to somewhere else to lessen the noise impact. We would also ask that they consider increasing the height of the acoustic wall from the current proposal to the proposed 2.3 meter to a 2.3 meter high wall, which is the same as what is proposed for the primary outdoor play area on the eastern side. In addition, at the moment, the wall is just proposed for the outdoor play area section. We would ask that the wall encompass the whole of our property from either end. So those are that's the main concern we have. There's also a proposed shade structure, and we would ask that this be kept to a height of 1 floor, of single floor, so as not to impose on our view from the veranda and block sunlight from the property, from our property. The other concern that we have is the proposed height of the entry building. At the moment, we have a pretty spectacular view, and I do appreciate that this falls within the guidelines, and it doesn't oppose any guidelines, but we would ask if it's possible to consider just making the office interview and reception area a single floor without the skillion, which we believe will greatly limit our view from our property. In addition, we would ask, which likewise is directly above our property. We are concerned about both the odor and also the noise, and we would ask if there's any possibility that they would consider relocating those areas to parking bay areas as a 5 and 6, which is further along the property, and perhaps relocate the bay areas to where the proposed bin areas are. The rest are just clarification, which I think that we can handle on the question time. I have nothing further.
Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Members, we will go to the next presenters before going to question times. Mr. Matthew Walker.
Send that to everyone.
Scroll up. Is it?
That's the wrong.
That's the wrong
Oh, that's the
presentation.
wrong one.
Yeah. One's only 10 slides long.
And that's easy.
Thanks for that. Okay, good morning. I'm Matthew Crawford of Matthew Crawford Architects, located at 6 Burn Street, North Melville. Thank you for the opportunity to present this morning. This application seeks approval to construct a childcare premise and single residential house at lot 20, number 308, Preston Point Road, Atterbury. The childcare facility is proposed to accommodate 130 children from 0 years old to 5 years old. It will offer families a high quality premises and high standards of early childhood education delivered by experienced staff. In addition, there is a single 2-storey house located in the northwestern corner of the site. The design of the house in the centre references one of the most iconic houses in the area, located a little further to the west at 150 Preston Point Road. Massing. The childcare centre is set back on site similar to the existing church. The highest point of the centre, namely the roof of the large central indoor play area, is set well away from neighbouring houses in the centre of the building. From this hierarchical high point, the building reduces significantly in height towards each boundary. The house opens up to the north and benefits from good solar orientation for passive solar benefit. Courtyard also benefits from a northeastern orientation, ensuring protection from prevailing winds and a great solar aspect. Materials palette. The facades of the buildings have been carefully modelled, incorporating a rich mix of appropriate, expressive hardware and materials. Face brick, glazed brick, rendered brickwork in 3 colours, and painted fibre cement panels. They're broken up into panels of various colours to provide interest and break up the overall mass. Entry statement. The entry is housed in a higher volume, which is very important for us to ensure it is clearly visible from the street. The location of the entry means it's well away from all neighbours and is very similar in height to the existing church building at the same point on the site. The childcare building is centred around a 200 square metre indoor play area that creates the real heart of the building. It is incredibly important as an all ages play area that can be used in all weathers and ensures the external play areas can easily be managed to ensure a maximum of 60 children playing outside at once. Outdoor play areas. The outdoor play areas need to link directly to the internal activity areas to ensure ease of access for the children, but also critical direct lines of sight for the safety of the children. Due to the falls across the site, the southern outdoor play area close to 7 Swan Street is actually significantly set down from the natural ground level at roughly 1.5 metres. The acoustic fence at this point is set 2.1 metres above the 1.5 metre high retaining structure, providing acoustic barrier effectively 3 metres high to ensure acoustic protection for the neighbours. We know that the neighbour has requested the height of the acoustic fence at the top of the retaining wall is increased in height to 2.3 metres, and this is something that we would be willing to do. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. We will now move to Renee Young.
Good morning, DAP members. I'll take the contents of our presentation as been read, so I'll just touch on the high points today. Just thought it worth noting that whilst the site is in the residential zone in R25, it's got a really long history of non-residential use as a place of worship. It's also uncharacteristically large for this area of over 4,000 square metres. What's really clever about this design is that it does incorporate the dwelling to the street front to create that residential character to Preston Point Road. Importantly, the residential dwelling also complies for the most part with the R codes, other than the private open space being on the north of the dwelling, which achieves the performance outcome because it achieves superior solar access. Importantly, from the City of Melville's local planning policy point of view, there are two key local planning policies. One is LPP 1.2, childcare premises, and the other is LPP 2.1, non-residential development. The development meets all the key criteria in these and has been supported by the City of Melville officers in terms of the performance outcomes which relate to loading zones, which aren't relevant for this use. The proposal's also been supported by the full range of required specialist input. So there's been a detailed acoustic assessment done by Lloyd George Acoustics. They've used very conservative modelling and it still achieves the required outcomes. So that's based on 20 children of 0 to 2 age group in that southern play area, and the older children who are typically louder in the northern play area. It's also modelled on all children playing simultaneously at the same time. The reality is expected to be much lower, so it achieves compliance at a worst case scenario. There's some good landscaping proposed with lots of trees proposed back to the street when it's currently quite a, the site at the moment is a church sitting in a void of asphalt car parking. Parking's in excess of the minimum requirements and supported by traffic engineering, and you'll hear from Paul today. And the City of Melville has confirmed that they agree with all the specialist reporting that's been provided with this report. There was just one minor administrative change we wanted to note, which was in relation to condition numbering. The numbering of conditions 22 and 23 seem to have been repeated in the package, so we just wanted to point that out. Paul Gantos of Irby, our traffic specialist, will speak to condition number 22, which requires a road safety audit based on the city's policy, which we say has a fairly low threshold for requiring a road safety audit. So Paul will talk to that. And finally, we'd just like to offer our thanks to the City of Melville officers who've worked really collaboratively with us throughout this process and have implemented design changes along the way. And we'd ask that support the officer recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now move to presenter Cody Goodwin. Welcome.
Stop sharing.
First, I'd just like to thank the officers for the work on the project. They've been very good to deal with. We support the officers' recommendations for approval. Paul will speak on one of the conditions we believe is unreasonable and unwarranted. When we lodged our application, I went around and knocked on all the neighbours' doors to show the plans and answer any questions. Unfortunately, when we went to 7A, Swan Street, the owner was away, and I spoke to the person outside the house looking after it and told him I was happy to discuss the plans. I believe as we operators, we need to have a good relationship with our neighbours. We are operating the centre. I'm just addressing some of Senate's concerns. I had actually talked to him this morning, and I just want to work with him to make sure everything's right for him. The majority of his concerns were more around the noise, I think anyway, more around the noise from the 2 to 3 year old playground. which we talked about that, and that's discussed what we tried to do, and we are more than happy to lift the fence and, you know, try and do whatever the neighbour wants there to try and help out. That's not an issue. Just the other things, to address the needs of the community, so parents can get to work. We need to open at 7:30. I think condition 21 requires an operational management plan which addresses this. I'm happy for the shade sales to be restricted to a height, not to shade 7A's backyard. So as long as, you know, above the shade doesn't go above the fence height, I'm more than happy with that. Unfortunately, we can't move bin stores because it doesn't work parking wise. We had a look at that, but can confirm that it is fully enclosed, and conditions 19 and 20 address this. Some maintenance and cleaning has to be done when children aren't there, so we can't restrict the hours these are done, but we definitely restrict, you know, limit it where possible, so we don't disturb the neighbouring won't be done, you know, late at night or anything like that. The centre is licensed for 130 places. After owning and selling a group of childcare, my wife and I wanted to build and operate just one centre. This is my wife's pet centre. She wants to give back to the community in the way in which we live. We live on Preston Point Road, by providing an experience for children, parents, staff in the way of the community that can't be done by a centre built by developers to make money. This centre is completely different to 99% of childcare. It's a single story on a large site. It's a large indoor play area to enable children to play all the times of the day without disturbing the neighbours, and has accommodation which may be used for staff if needed, because we know the accommodation prices at the moment. I know we'll have a great relationship with all our neighbours. Once initial concerns are sorted out, I'll have to ask and answer questions.
Thank you. We'll go to our presenter. Paul Ventus.
Yes. Good morning, presiding member, panel members, and officers. My name is Paul Gantis. I'm the managing director of the Transport Consultants. Melville was engaged to provide traffic engineering services for this project. We prepared a transport impact statement in June 2024. This included a review of access, parking, and road safety. Based on our technical assessments, we support the RAR recommendation for approval. However, we respectfully request that condition 22, requiring a road safety audit or RSA, be removed. The proposed development does not warrant the need for an RSA. It should be noted that no specific safety issues have been identified in our traffic assessment or in the RAR. And the road safety audit is only being requested because of the city policy. We reviewed the city's road safety audit policy as highlighted in the slide. The policy is focused on projects which involve permanent changes to the road network. This seems reasonable. We feel that the policy is better applied to larger scale developments which involve permanent changes to the road network. For example, a development that might require traffic lights or a roundabout to be built. The subject site currently has around 50 to 60 parking bays with 2 existing crossovers on Preston Point Road. Proposed development would reduce the car parking provided on site. Vehicle access is being maintained by 2 crossovers on Preston Point Road, with only a minor widening of one of the crossovers.
Thank you. Panel members, we will now go to questions to the first group of presenters. Are there any questions? Yes.
They probably to the architect or just with the acoustic fencing, drawing 7A is one street. Is that a return? Does it return to fully enclose the outdoor play area? Because is there an existing retaining wall and fence that will be maintained? I'm just trying to work out how far the acoustic fencing goes.
Yeah, no, it's not an existing retaining wall, that'll be a new retaining wall. And
Okay.
what we've done is we have returned it to the bin store.
Yeah.
Because that building acts as an acoustic barrier as well.
Yes.
So we have, in that sense, we have limited it to in the proposal as it stands, have limited it to the play area.
No, I can understand the logic in doing so. Okay, that was
Right.
my question.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions at this juncture from panel members? Yes, Councillor Daniel.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just sort of like trying to clarify. I know there's an understanding that you're willing to increase the south acoustic fence to 2.3. And also there's also an issue around the shade sail being limited to 1 story height. Can I just confirm, are you supportive of both sort of amendments, or are you only sort of approving one of them? So this could be Mr. Crawford or Mr. Kobe. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, the fence, we're happy to do whatever the neighbour wants there and work with him on that. There's no problem at all. And the shade sail, we're happy to make it. It'll be more than 1 story is like 3 metres or 3. It'll be a little bit higher towards the building, but we'll make sure it just rates down at the back so there's no shade. We'll go on to, above the fence height, so we'll go into his land at all. And if it really is an issue for him, we'll try and work with him for the views too, if it's going to restrict any views, which I don't think it will, because it won't be higher than our building. So that shouldn't be an issue at all. And we'll have to work or do whatever to make that work.
Thank you, Kobe. Appreciate that.
Thank you. Are there any further questions at this juncture? If there are no further questions, we will move forward on the item. Members, we can always come back before we move into the actual motion to the presenters. We will now move to the officers at the City of Melville. Do you just want to let us know who's in the room with you?
Hello, it's Kate Bainbridge, the Manager of Statutory Planning and Building.
And Liam Johnson, Statutory Planner at City of Melville. The building's emergency warning system is about
So, you just have to
this
hold
is
for
a
a
test
moment.
only. No action is required by general staff. I repeat, no action is required by general staff. The first tone you will hear is the alert tone. An incident
contamination has been detected in the building. Please prepare to evacuate.
The next tone you will hear is the evacuation tone. I repeat, this is a test only. No action is required by general staff.
Evacuate now. Emergency. Evacuate now. Emergency.
This concludes the alarm tone testing. Floor wardens stand by for further instructions. Could wardens from levels 2 to 6 please attend your stairwells, pick up the whip phone and wait for the chief warden to respond.
We might start back at the meeting. We're not sure if we're going to get any other advice. Over to yourselves, officers.
Thank you, Presiding Member. So myself, I'm Kate Bainbridge from the City of Melville. Just in relation to the comments from the applicants around the road safety audit, wish to provide some initial clarification on our requirement for that, and also a request for the change to the wording of the policy. I believe that we currently have the timing prior to occupation. However, we would believe it to be more appropriate to be undertaken.
Your attention, please. The building's emergency warning tests have now been completed. Thank you for your cooperation.
So we have now completed our building testing.
Sorry. Sorry, so just in relation to condition number 22, I believe that we have worded the condition to state prior to occupation, however, believe that it'd be more appropriate to be within 12 months of completion of the development. The requirement for the road safety audit is namely due to the nature of the land use being a childcare centre. As 130 child placements plus staff, And peak movements being at very different times to the existing land use. And then Preston Point Road is known to our traffic safety team to have black spots. So due to the nature of the use and the road conditions, we believe a road safety audit to be appropriate. If there is no substantive change required in the road conditions as a result of the audit, then there'll be no further expense to the applicants in fulfilling that condition. So we believe it to be in line with the precautionary approach and appropriate condition considering the nature of the land use and the road conditions in question. So now I'll pass over to my colleague Liam to go through our quick presentation, just to run through our key assessment issues. You can do window. And then do. You can do the first one. Sure, and then just bring up your and the bottom corner. Perfect.
Hi guys, I'm Liam from the City of Melville. So I'll just talk you through a brief summary of the development application. So it proposes a childcare premises and a dwelling at 308 Preston Point Road. The site is currently zoned residential with an R25 density code. It contains an existing place of worship. The subject site.
Liam, the presentation has not come up. We're not sharing the screen that we can see.
Oh, okay. Sharing a window.
You have your presentation, but we can't see. We're attempting to share it.
Just stop sharing at the bottom of the screen. Yeah. Just go back to the main page. Just go back to share screen at the bottom. Yeah. Yeah. And then go.
No.
Yeah, just that one. Yeah. Yeah. Share.
Have you got it now?
Thank you. Yes.
Thanks. Thank you. So the subject site is currently surrounded by low density residential development. The development is situated, so the residential component of the development is situated at the front of the lot facing the primary street, and this continues kind of the residential streetscape along Preston Point Road. The childcare is situated to the rear of the block. It contains the following elements. So it's capable of handling up to 130 children and 30 staff members at any time. 31 parking bays are provided, 6 bicycle bays are provided. The development also provides 221 metres squared of internal play area and 1,138 metres squared of outdoor play area. The city considers the development to be consistent with the residential zone objectives as contained in local planning standard number 6 as well. That's detailed further in the RIR report. So we've assessed the development against the relevant local planning policies contained by the city. So local planning policy 1.12 refers to childcare premises and family daycares. So there's a couple of elements which this development doesn't meet from this policy. The subject site isn't a corner lot. Whilst we know it is situated quite close to an intersection, we don't quite consider it to be a corner lot. And the childcare is proposed to open before 7 AM. So we consider the siting and location of the development suitable as it replaces an existing non-residential land use, and therefore the impact of an ongoing commercial use won't be as severe. And despite opening before 7 in the morning, we only anticipate a small number of users will be attending the site before this period. And the applicant has made commentary of this in the acoustic report provided as part of the application, which made note that there won't be any noise impact proposed from this. In regards to vehicle access, it was assessed against local planning policy 1.6. The development actually provides a surplus of parking bays. So there's 31 parking bays provided. They only needed to provide 28 for the childcare component. The variations to this policy being there was no designated pickup or drop-off area provided, no service or loading bays were provided, and no motorcycle or scooter parking was provided. We consider that given the surplus of parking provided on site, it's not too detrimental to the functionality of the development that these specific elements weren't included. Servicing of the site.
Brilliant. Your presentation is not changing on our screen at all. You're on slide 7 and we're still on site context and development summary.
Sorry, I'll see if this works.
Yes.
Oh, Have you got the vehicle access section now?
Let's just
I
leave
might just leave
it.
it and click
Yeah.
forward, yeah. So as I was saying, given there's a surplus of bays provided on site, this negates the impact of not providing motorcycle and scooter parking, service, loading bays and pick up and drop off areas. We anticipate there will be designated pick up and drop off areas given the nature of the use as well, if you've got parents dropping off children. And this will probably also be captured through an ongoing operational management plan, which we've recommended as a condition on the development approval. In regards to, have you got the change of slide? Cool. In regards to the residential dwelling, the main variation was the outdoor living area was situated in front of the dwelling within the street setback rather than behind the dwelling. We think this is a good design outcome in the fact that the alfresco and main outdoor living area of the dwelling gets more access to northern light. So there'll be more sunlight access to the main atrium of the dwelling because of this, and it will allow for a better landscaped outcome with the garden having more access to sun for plants to grow. In regards to community engagement, we received 5 submissions, 3 objected, 2 did not specifically object but raised concerns. So we've summarised the concerns here and provided some comments. So concerns were raised for traffic issues created by the development, which the applicant demonstrated was suitable through the TIS submitted as part of the development application. We've already talked about the location of the proposed use and why it's suitable. It's replacing an existing non-residential use, so it shouldn't have too much more impact going forward. With regard to parking, we've identified that there's a surplus on site, and we'll be seeking to apply a condition requiring an operational management plan provided to maintain the ongoing functionality of the parking arrangements. With regard to noise, the acoustic report demonstrated that the level of noise generated from play areas to adjoining residential properties was suitable and could be managed ongoing. Concerns were raised to impact on land values. We can't really consider this as a planning objection as part of the application. Loss of user significance, we note that overall the development was compliant with our local planning policy 1.9, which requires height of buildings to be under 10.5 metres tall in this area, so the development complied in this instance. Amenities being discussed throughout the RAR report. We consider that the applicant has demonstrated through all the technical reporting and the planning submission done as part of the application that the amenity impacts will be mitigated. The siting of the outdoor play areas were raised concern. Again, the applicant demonstrated that noise from these play areas can be suitably managed on an ongoing basis. Concern was raised over the siting design of the bin store. Again, the location and management of the waste refuge areas is considered acceptable by the city. We're going to seek a revised waste management plan.
Yeah, we were seeking a revised waste management plan to address odour management ongoing for this as development as well, to address concerns raised by the neighbouring landowners. Yeah.
And then, that's pretty much it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you. Panel members, are there questions to officers? Member Daniel Lee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So just a question, if we were to amend, let's say do an amendment by adding a condition for the south side wall to be 2.3, would that have any issues in terms of planning point of things? Thank you.
Through the chair, we have no objection to that condition being added, and it would probably lessen the impact on adjoining property owners as well. So, yeah.
However, we would encourage that question to be vetted by the applicant to determine if there's any architectural issues with that, or operational issues with that change.
Could you provide a further commentary in relation to that specific question in the context of condition 17, which refers to a plan for the outdoor play spaces being provided to and approved by the city to deal with proposed shade and play structures? Is that where you are suggesting that the reference to the shade as discussed today would occur?
Through the chair, what we usually find with these types of development applications is that they won't include shade structures as part of this development because they usually obtain a landscape architect to design the play spaces later on. And what we want to do is avoid the need for a secondary development application later on. We accept that shade structures are a usual and normal part of childcare centres to provide appropriate shade for the play spaces outdoors. So the idea is to try and capture this through this development application and condition clearance.
Thank you. Sorry, Member Daniel Lim, did you want to have any further questions?
No, thank you, Madam Chair.
Are there any other questions from panel members? Yes.
Thanks. Just in relation to the last matter, is it your view that it sounds like the neighbours' concern about the shade structure height could be managed through condition 17? Is that your understanding?
Through the chair, yes, we think it could be managed through that condition.
Condition 22, I'm just not completely clear what you were suggesting. You mentioned a change of potential change of the timing of that condition. Could you repeat that? My reading is that you've got prior to the commencement of development. Is that what I have to do?
Was this in regards to the condition for the road safety audit?
Yeah.
I'm very sorry, I didn't understand, or I couldn't hear very clearly. What was the, could you please repeat the question?
You spoke to this condition earlier, and I wasn't clear what you were suggesting about maybe changing the timing of that condition.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, okay. So through the chair, in relation to condition number 22, it says prior to the commencement of development, and we would love for the timing of that condition to be within 12 months of completion of the development. So that way there's enough time after the development has been completed for the operation of the development to occur, from which a road safety audit can make a more informed review of the safety of the road conditions as a result of the development.
Any further questions? I have some questions. Condition 15 refers to the developments operating in accordance with the acoustic report. We've heard today from, and in the material we've received, from the adjoining neighbour to the south, and we've also heard from the applicant in relation to specifically the acoustic wall. And if I'm correct, both of those parties confirm me if I'm incorrect. There was a discussion around the wall height being 2.3 metres. Is that what you both are understanding? So my question in that context to the officers is that I note that the recommendations in the acoustic report dated 14th of June 2024 to the satisfaction of the city. Can you provide some comment about that specific aspect? I'm really raising the question of a modification to the condition that refers to the recommendation set out in the report dated 14th of June, including wall height 2.3 metres on the southern boundary. Is that what your understanding is, or are you suggesting that the current condition clarifies it because on this particular matter? And it's the wall height in the play area. That's correct.
You're looking at the entire width of the property.
So did the officers hear that comment that the wall height is for the length of the southern boundary? Do you have any comments? Because I know this condition does not specifically refer to that obligation.
Through the chair, we're more than happy for that condition to be reworded to make it much clearer as to the specifics of the recommendations that need to be implemented as part of the acoustic report. But we believe that the existing wording does cover it because the report specifically requires and recommends a 2.3 metre high acoustic wall. But we're happy for the condition to be augmented to make this clearer if required.
Thank you. And my next question is in relation to condition 17. In a similar vein as discussed around condition 15, and again, I'm going to recount my hearing and from today's conversation as well as the material provided. When we're talking about the outdoor play space, and this is prior to the occupational development plan for the outdoor play space shall be provided. Again, I'm referring to potential modification that the shade structures to the rear of the site to be designed to minimise impact on the rear neighbour. Do you have any comments on that?
Through the chair, we have no objections to that modification to the condition.
And does that language clarify or provide a level of clarity in the wording of the condition relative to the discussion and essentially the intent that I am referring to at this juncture?
Sorry, can you just repeat that question? I'm not entirely sure what you need from us.
What I'm trying to get at is you will be administering and clearing the conditions. There's been some discussion today. The applicant has indicated that they are happy to modify or provide shade that drops away or slopes away from the building to the rear in a manner that minimises impact on the neighbour. I'm very conscious that these conversations, if there is a movement in a condition, you will be administering the condition as written, and it's providing clarity if such a change is made today for yourself as the officers managing the conditions, but also for anybody else that is reading the outcome of a decision in the event that the panel moves that. So really it's about, is there certainty in what is on a condition such as that, a change such as that?
Through the chair, in terms of wording changes to that condition, to provide that certainty, it would be prudent, I think, in the second sentence after these structures of additional landscaping, to insert more clarity in that location, to say to slope away to minimise overshadowing and impact on adjacent properties, and installed prior to occupation of the development. So just in that location, I think would be the most appropriate insertion of the specifics of the design.
Thank you. That is what I was trying to get at. Yes, because we are discussing that particular aspect. If there is a determination of it, there needs to be clarity for all parties. And I note that we are referring, I'm just quickly scanning back to my plans, sorry, I'm jumping back and forth now. I note that in the plans, and again, I will refer to both the presenters, we are referring specifically to outdoor play 2. Yeah, outdoor play 2, is that correct? Thank you. Those are my questions. And I have a follow-up question in relation to condition 22 that has been asked to be deleted. Can you, and I appreciate your comments about being 12 months post the operation. I'm interested in understanding when you talk about road conditions and the extent of changes, what sort of matters would you envisage would require modification, and what sort of modification we are talking about in the road? I appreciate you may not be able to fully answer it, And my intent of the question, or my rationale for the question is, if there are significant concerns from the officers and from your engineers that the number of students, the configuration of the site, the access points and the road could be significantly, could result in a significant impact and change on the road, then it begs the broader question about concern of the proposal itself and the suitability of the proposal. So what I'm hearing is the material in the report says that the site is appropriate in this location for this use in this configuration. I'm curious to understand what would a road safety audit provide and how dramatic would those changes ultimately be? Because if they are dramatic, we have to ask questions about making judgments.
Through the chair, as road safety audit would look at not only just the road conditions, but also the pedestrian and cycling movements that would be occurring within the location, and may make recommendations to introduce additional safety features to improve the safety of all users. Things like relocating a footpath to a more safe location, providing protection for cyclists in over certain bends, changes to some of the line markings, introduction of islands for pedestrian refuges. Those are the types of road modifications that may be required as part of an audit, which would be informed by the use being an operation, which if it doesn't substantially change the existing road conditions, then there would be no requirement to change the road conditions, and we would know for certain that the operations are entirely safe. With a childcare centre, there's 2 peak periods of time where we're receiving a large number of vehicle movements, whereas with the existing place of worship, you generally have a lot of the peak movements on the weekends and special occasions. So they are very different land uses and hence have very different peak periods and will use the road differently. We're also dealing with very vulnerable people and there are also some people who may choose to walk to the site. So it's about making sure that the vehicle access arrangements and the road safety as they're accessing the site and leaving the site is as safe as possible. So ideally, the road safety would demonstrate that it is entirely safe, and if it isn't, there could be just some minor modifications to the road network that's required to ensure the safety of the people using the site. So we see this as a precautionary approach because of the nature of the land use in this particular circumstance. In terms of the information that's been provided to us at this point in time, we only have a traffic impact statement, not a traffic impact assessment. A traffic impact assessment provides a lot more detail in relation to the road safety and the road conditions at the moment, whereas a statement, because of the existing land use and proposed land use only triggering, I think, less than 100 additional vehicle movements, we just don't have that same level of assessment that we would with a traffic impact assessment. So we see that this is a really good middle ground to try and make sure that the conditions on the road are as safe as possible for all road users.
Thank you. Can you confirm if, despite not having that material at this juncture, your assessment, you are comfortable with the development, because you're obviously recommending approval for it, but you didn't have that document in making the assessment, you're still comfortable that the proposal is appropriate?
Yes, we do. We believe that this land use is appropriate in this location and that the scale of the development and its siting is appropriate as well.
Thank you. Are there any further questions from panel members? If there are no further questions from members, we will move back to the substantive motion. There is a recommendation at the beginning of the RA, as is required under the standing orders. We will go to the recommendation as written. Is there a mover for the recommendation in the RA as written?
Can I raise an amendment?
You need to move the motion on the table first before we can go to any amendments. Are you moving the full motion, Councillor Daniel Lim?
Yeah, I can move it.
It is moved, Councillor Daniel Lim. Is there a seconder to the motion as written in the agenda? It is seconded Lee O'Donoghue. Melville, would you like to speak to it? And at this juncture, you can speak to the item and you can then deal with an amendment should you wish to.
Yeah, I think it's yeah, I'll speak to it. So I think it's an excellent development. I think there's been a lot of compromise in the way it's designed, and I understand there are, not every party is exactly happy with the development, because I know that the south side and the north side there was complaints about noise and around the play area, but I think having it in the middle is a good compromise. Plus having a wall for the south side, it's sort of probably the best scenario that we can achieve, and I think this development is good for the area. There's ample parking bays, and it seems like Mr. Kobe's intention is quite pure in terms of giving back to the community for him and his wife. But yeah, I think I thank I could be getting this from Mr. and Mrs. Trout for coming down and explaining their concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Daniel Lim, did you say you wanted to move an amendment?
Yeah, if I can move an amendment, probably on condition, I believe the acoustics one is 15, to add in a recommendation to increase the height to 2.3 meters for the south side wall.
Yes, just for the minute taker, just one moment. For the minute taker, we are referring to condition 15. And that reads, the development shall operate in accordance with the recommendations set out in the acoustic report dated 14th of June. And is this, I understand, what Member Daniel Lim is referring to? And include the wall, the southern boundary wall, to be a height of 2.3 meters for its full length. Is that what you were referring to, or have I misworded it?
Yes, please, Madam Chair.
2.3 meters. So it's the after 14th of June 2024, the southern boundary wall to be a height of 2.3 meters for the full length.
Is that the full length of the acoustic wall, or is it existing? There's fencing on either side of the
Above the retaining wall, I think.
But is that the full length?
For the full length of the boundary,
For the full length.
or acoustic. Yeah, acoustic wall.
So
Because
this is referring to the acoustic wall. This report is about, so condition 15 relates to the acoustic provision. So it's talking about a 2.3 metre wall along the length of the southern boundary. And that would be essentially also functioning as an acoustic wall.
if you look at the plans, you've got a specific
Yes.
acoustic wall, haven't you? What have you got either side? There's
There's
colour.
the boundary, yes. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's just that acoustic, we're just talking about just that acoustic wall adjoining the area, no
No.
other things.
No, we're
So
talking
just-
about the entire side.
Just one moment. Councillor Daniel Lim, we're discussing your clarifying the language of your amendment in relation to a 2.3 metre wall along the southern boundary. The southern boundary has a regular wall, and then in front of it, or within the site, at play area 2, there is a acoustic wall. I'll just hold for one moment and I'll get clarity. The presenter was referring to the boundary wall, is that correct? And the applicant, you were referring to.
We're happy to leave the whole line.
So in the context of what you've just heard, is this amendment for the acoustic wall or the boundary wall?
So I may got this understanding incorrectly. Does Kobe mean to move to increase both the boundary wall and the acoustic wall, or just or just one part of it?
He said yes, he refers to both.
Yeah, so maybe the language can be both, if possible.
Okay, so we'll just make sure we get clarity of this language.
Can I just-
Yes, you most certainly can.
The reference in the documentation is to an acoustic fence. What is that one? The reference to the acoustic management refers to a carbon acoustic fence. I'm wondering if the word fence might help clarify. Yeah. Small.
So the acoustic, was referring to both acoustic and boundary fence to the height of. Is that what you're referring to, member, in the motion?
Yes, please.
That's what the developer, Toby, you understand that's what is being referred to?
Yes.
Okay, just to try and get clarity on condition language. So for the minute taker, we're inserting those words after 2024 that the acoustic will now read the acoustic and boundary fence to be a height of 2.3 metres. On the southern mountain, along the southern mountain. So. To the satisfaction of the city, obviously. Okay. Did the city understand what was being discussed? I'm conscious you have prepared conditions.
Yes, through the chair, we understand. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, is there a seconder for amendment 1? It is seconded, Brian Curtis. Does the seconder wish to speak to amendment 1? Okay, are there any other speakers on amendment 1? Would the mover of amendment 1 like to write a reply and close of debate on amendment 1?
No, thank you, Madam Chair.
Members, we are dealing on amendment 1 only. All those in favour? It is carried unanimously. That is a modification to condition 15. We are back to the mover. Would you like to continue speaking?
No, thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Would the seconder like to speak to the item?
Look, I'll be brief. I think this is, we see a lot of childcare centres. You have 4,000 square metres of land to be able to design something as well as this. It's fantastic. I particularly like the fact that there is a dwelling located on the premises, and I'm not sure exactly what it says in the report, but can be using it for staff. But I think that's also, I think that's very worthwhile from the streetscape point of view, because that obviously presents well to the street. I think this is really well designed. It's got 3 outdoor play areas. It achieves a single story profile. I acknowledge the concerns raised by the neighbour at the rear, but I think that the acoustic fence and other boundary fences will go a long way to addressing those. I think this is a really great proposal. I am always, but I am very well in that location. I know this location really well for the proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers on the motion?
Yes.
Yes.
I just had a question. Have we incorporated the change that the officers mentioned in relation to the shade sale?
No, we haven't. That was discussed in question time. There has been no motion yet moved in relation to condition 17.
I'd like to move that if it's considered necessary, and I'll seek the panel's guidance on whether it's. I think there's a general understanding in any event, but perhaps it's worth clarifying in the recommendation?
That's correct. Any changes that are made, it's important that there's clarity for both the applicant and the officers, who would be obviously, as already indicated today, responsible for clearing conditions. The officers did assist in providing some language for the minute taker and for the member in the event that you can wish to move it.
Yes,
I'm
happy to move it according to that language that was provided by the officers. Thank you.
Thank you. So we're after the word, the first sentence ending with the word any additional landscaping, and then we are inserting language that says the shade structure in the rear outdoor play area 2 to slope away from the building to minimise overlooking and impact on the adjoining property, rear property. Full stop.
Sorry to the chair, it was overshadowing, not overlooking.
I beg your pardon, overshadowing.
Thank you.
My own writing. Minimise overshadowing, sorry, and impact on rear neighbour, comma, and to be installed prior to occupation. Are you comfortable with that, Member Matthew Woodall?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for modification of condition 17? It is seconded. Member Daniel Lim, would the mover like to speak to the amendment?
Look, very briefly, I think it's a sensible compromise. The applicant's been very reasonable in offering to ensure that the shade sale does minimise the overlooking and impact on the neighbours. And I think given both parties are in agreement on that, I think it's sensible to include it as a recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. Would the seconder like to speak to the amendment 2?
Just briefly, I think I just commend Mr. Kirby for able to work with the residents around it. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers on amendment 2? There are no other speakers. Does the mover wish a right of reply or going straight to the vote? We're going straight to the vote. I think everyone's clear as what we are referring to. All those in favour? Is carried unanimously for the minute taker. We are back to the substantive motion. Would you like to continue speaking, Member Matthew Woodall?
No, that's all. I'm happy to go to a vote unless there are other speakers.
Thank you. We'll go back to the substantive motion. I will speak to the substantive motion. Essentially, my discussion is not going to repeat the matters already indicated. I will indicate that from my perspective and the material that's been provided to us, the proposal is an excellent development. I do commend the applicant and the officers for the inclusion of residential at the front, creating a very innovative treatment towards the street in a residential area. It is not something I have seen myself in application, so very well thought out design and respectful of the residential zoning in terms of the streetscape. The proposal has been indicated as being consistent with the planning framework, and I'm comfortable that it meets that requirement. From my perspective, I am moving an amendment 3. My amendment is the deletion of condition 22. My reasoning, there is a seconder for the deletion, is that based on the material that we've got provided us and the clarity that has been provided in terms of the meeting today, I am comfortable that the proposal is appropriate in its context and that any substantial changes to the road network, those concerns would have been articulated and identified through this initial assessment, and that it is not reasonable that the applicant be required to make substantial changes in the context of what is an approval and the support for the overall design. I also note the comments that the existing site is a non-residential use and the proposal is reducing the number of vehicle movements. I do understand that vehicle movements for childcare have concentration, but I am comfortable with the proposal as written, and I do not feel in this particular proposal on this site, in this location, and based on the material that's got in the RAR, that condition 22 is necessary, and I am moving it be deleted. Is there a seconder for that? It is seconded by O'Donoghue. Would the seconder like to speak to the amendment?
Oh, simply that I agree with the Melville's comments. I don't see a need for it. It's been considered, the application has been considered by traffic engineers at council, and I'm confident that that no other issues will arise from it, so I don't see the need for an audit.
Are there any other speakers on Amendment 3? Yes, Member Matthew Woodall.
Look, I don't support vigilation. I think it is sensible to have a road safety audit 12 months after operation, given that I think the operation of the childcare may be different to the existing use on the site. And I don't necessarily think that there will be a significant expense following the road safety audit. I think it may identify minor changes. There may be surface treatments and whatnot regarding the crossover or the footpath. There may be, pedestrian refuge islands recommended, things like that, that aren't necessarily going to be such a significant expense as, modifying the road layout or network. So I think it would be prudent to do. But I understand that, the recommendation as it is capable of approval. So that would be my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers on Amendment 3? Yes.
I just want to reiterate what the mover suggested. I don't believe this meets the need for functions to be final. And it opens, it might be desirable, but I don't believe it's reasonable. I think
Are there any other? Thank you. Are there any other speakers on Amendment 3? If not, I will have no further comment and we'll accordingly close debate as the right required. We are now going to go immediately to the vote on Amendment 3, which is deletion of condition 22. All those in favour? Against? It is carried 3-2 for the minute taker. We move back to the substantive motion. I think everyone has spoken. We will now move, there's no other speakers on the substantive. We are moving back to the mover for right of reply and close of debate on the substantive motion, inclusive of amendments to carry. Member Daniel Lynn.
I think it was a very effective outcome for everyone. So I think, I'm happy to go ahead with the vote.
Thank you. Debate has been closed. We are now going to the vote. All those in favour? Is carried unanimously for the minute taker. For the minute taker, it is 10:49 a.m. and we are just about to change panel members. I'll just check if there's any further in here. There are no Form 2 applications relating to this Part B and no SAP reconsiderations relating to Part B, and we are now changing members. Thank you everybody for attending for Part
Thank
B.
you.
I'll move to Part C.
Thank you.
Councillor Renford, we're just going to send you a request to be a panelist. If you can accept that one, it will allow you to put your video on and talk for the next item.
Just declining to choice. And those conditions.
Oh, is it? There's a couple of numbers on there, but 22, 23, 22, 23.
Oh, okay. We'll just do it.
One of them will come out anyway. So
We'll do the administrative changes.
If you could just please turn your cameras on for those who are online, and we'll get started. And have we got the city officers there as well? They can turn their camera on.
welcome. We are now into part C, and we have a change to our panel. We now have, as part of this part of the agenda, Mayor Ben Mayers, welcome, and Councillor Georgie Rank. Can you pronounce this for me, please?
Randcliffe.
Randcliffe. Thank you. Sorry, I was adding other pronunciations in there. Thank you. We are commencing this section at 10:54 a.m. Members, could I have a show of hands that you have duly considered all matters before you in relation to this item? That is unanimous for the minute taker. Members, are there any disclosures of interest? Yes. Mayor Ben Mayers. Sorry.
Thank you, Chair. Under clause 2.4.9 of the DAP Code of Conduct, I participated in the prior council decision in accordance with my functions as a member of a local government. However, under clause 2.1.2 of the DAP Code of Conduct, I acknowledge that I'm not bound by any previous decision or resolution of the local government, and I undertake to exercise independent judgment in relation to this application before me, which I'll consider on its planning merits.
Thank you. Are there any other interests? Yes, Member Georgie Rankler.
Under clause 2.4.9 of the DAP Code of Conduct, I participated in the prior council decision in accordance with my functions as a member of a local government. However, under clause 2.1.2 of the DAP Code of Conduct, I acknowledge that I am not bound by any previous decision or resolution of the local government. I undertake to exercise independent judgment in relation to any DAP application before me, which I will consider on its merits.
Thank you. I have an interest that I will provide at this point. My interest is that the officer representing this item, Gabriella Ponson, is a fellow DAP member and is known to me, but has no influence on my decision making at today's meeting. Are there any other members who have interest?
On the basis of
we have the same interest, which is for member Lee O'Donoghue regarding the officer Gabriella Ponson, is a fellow DAP member and is known to her. It also applies to member Brian Curtis, as all those interests are impartial interests. Full participation occurs for all parties. I will now move back to the agenda. We have one presentation for this item. That is Mr. Daniel Lees, before going to the officers at the city. Would Mr. Daniel Lees like to come forward with his presentation?
Good morning, panel members. Thank you for the opportunity to speak in support of this vital community facility that will rejuvenate a long dormant residential building at 165 Cambridge Street, West Leadable. This will create a new home for St John of God's Horizon House, young mothers and baby folk. This facility will provide safe, secure and stable interim accommodation for up to 6 mothers and their babies who are leaving unsafe home environments. This existing 1960s apartment building contains 8 units to be modified into 6, plus 1 unit for a 24/7 on-site staff member. Each unit can accommodate mum, baby, and 1 additional child of up to toddler age, with stay durations of up to 1 year typical. More than just accommodation, this hub provides wraparound support services by Horizon House staff to support mums who are typically aged between 16 and 22 to develop their own self-care and life skills, along with learning how to take care of the newborns. This can include setting healthy routines for mum and baby, building independent living skills, and identifying and promoting opportunities for education, training, and employment. Staff ultimately work to develop a housing pathway plan for mums so as to achieve the end goal of setting up mums to be able to look after themselves and their newborns, and then move on to attain and maintain housing independently. From a built form and amenity perspective, the existing building offers a good starting canvas with all accommodation units and the courtyard spaces north facing, enjoying the benefit of winter sun through the mature family trees being retained whilst being screened from Cambridge Street. Beyond the social merits of this proposal, this is also a great example of adaptive reuse of an existing building in an ideal location, which is readily accessible by public transport, surrounded by shopping and amenity businesses and the like, with an extensive footpath network across the surrounding streets. We are seeking your approval today, but with the deletion of Condition 10, which requires 1% public arts spend. Horizon House is a not-for-profit organisation that is part funded by St John of God Healthcare that is reliant on donations. This proposal is only possible as St John of God Healthcare has owned this property for quite some time, and they have gifted it to the Outreach Services branch of the group. The town's public art policy applies to commercial, non-residential and mixed-use developments. In essence, this proposal is predominantly residential in nature, given that its primary purpose is to accommodate new mums and babies, in which case the policy would not apply. In any case, as a not-for-profit organisation, budgetary matters are at the forefront of all considerations, and our position is that the public art obligation can be better spent on support programs for mums and babies. Furthermore, this is intended to be a discrete facility with no signage, so it is not considered appropriate for the placement of public art, which by its nature seeks to draw attention. And as a not-for-profit, we don't feel it would be appropriate for the alternative, which would be to provide cash in lieu to the town of Cambridge. On this basis, in the circumstances, it is respectfully considered that public art is not warranted or appropriate in this case. In closing, this is a much needed and a very worthy community purpose proposal that has the support of the town of Cambridge officers, who we thank for their consistent support of this proposal from our initial meeting through to the recommendation for approval that's before you. And as such, I would respectfully request your approval, but with the deletion of Condition 10 that deals with public art. With me, I have David Arden from St John of God Outreach Services, who's our client, and collectively we're available to answer any questions from the panel. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Members, are there any questions to this presenter?
This funding comes from St John of God and donations. Is that correct? Is any government funding provided? Is there any
not a regular funding as such, but reliant on donations.
Any other questions at this point? If there are no other questions, thank you for the presentation. We will now move to officers. Would officers like to make any comments in relation to this proposal?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Good morning, DAP members and other attendees. Steve Laming, Manager of Development Services at the town. Gabriella Poetson is not available to attend the meeting today. As outlined in the RAR, the town recommends that the application to change the use of the existing building to community purpose and the associated alterations and additions is approved. The town supports the proposed land use in the location as it will be complementary to the medical and medical-related land uses in the surrounding area. The use will also be relatively discreet and will not have an adverse impact on the amenity of the adjoining residential properties. Proposed works will not modify the existing height or footprint of the existing building. The works will, however, improve the appearance of what is currently an unappealing building, which will be positive for the Cambridge streetscape and enhance the presentation of the property to the neighbouring sites. The town has recommended that condition 10 is included in the approval, should the application be approved, which will require the landowner to provide public art to a value of 1% of the cost of the development. As the proposed construction costs is $2.27 million, the required public art value is $22,700. Under the town's public art policy, the provision of the public art could either be an installation on site or a cash in lieu payment to the town's public art fund. The town's public art expenditure plan identifies several expenditure areas within the town, which includes the medical precinct where the site is located. So the art contribution could be provided in the vicinity. Noting that the applicant has emphasised that the intention is for the operation of the development and its activities to be as discreet as possible, the option to pay cash in lieu for the public art provision would satisfy the town's public art requirement while assisting in keeping the development discreet. The town's public art policy requires the provision of public art for all non-residential developments. The policy does not provide any discretion for the town to waive the requirement for public art for any non-residential land uses, including a community purpose. The town has consistently applied the policy and the requirement for the provision of public art, despite previous attempts and requests to waive public art requirement for other applications. The applicant has stated in their presentation notes that regard should be given to the fact that the redevelopment of the neighbouring St John of God Subiaco Hospital, which was approved by the WAPC under the significant development pathway, will provide a significant contribution to public art at a more public-facing locality. The town's position is that the provision of public art on any other sites must not be drawn on as justification to waive the requirement to provide public art for this development. As I mentioned earlier, the landowner could opt to pay cash in lieu to the town's public art fund so that the provision of the public art could be put towards an art installation at a more public-facing locality. In summary, the town supports the application being approved subject to conditions, inclusive of condition 10 requiring the provision of public art. If the DAP resolves to delete condition 10 and waive the requirement for public art in this instance, the town requests that the DAP makes it clear that the provision of public art on another site is not the reason for why the condition is deleted and the requirement for public art is waived. Thank you.
Thank you. We will move to questions. My first question, I will actually lead, if you don't mind. My question is specifically in relation to your comment that the policy does not provide any discretion. I'd be interested to hear further, because any local planning policy is only a due regard. And I haven't got I can't reference it very quickly enough for me, but I'm just pulling your scheme, which includes general discretion. Could you clarify those comments, particularly in the context that does not provide for discretion, in the context of the planning framework that I just referred to?
Thank you, member, and you're correct. Any local planning policy you can apply discretion to. I guess I should have used the language that the policy doesn't set out any provisions for exemptions to certain land uses. It just says that the policy applies to all non-residential land uses. So there's no provisions that provide the town guidance on when the requirement to provide public art can be exempted. Thank you.
Thank you for that clarification. Are there any further questions at this juncture from any members? Sorry, Leo Donoghue.
Just a quick question. Effectively, redevelopment of this existing building, it will still read as a residential type use. Is that correct?
Sorry, is that question for me? I couldn't understand the question, sorry.
From your perception, it's going to be a residential building of some kind. It's not going to present as a commercial use or
it'll function primarily as interim accommodation. It will have some care use of components in it, so it's not a purely residential development. But yes, you're correct. It will present primarily as a residential development.
Effectively, it is providing accommodation.
Thank you. Any further questions to the officer or even to the applicant? Thank you, both parties. If not, we are now moving back to the agenda. Members, the agenda includes a recommendation at the beginning of it. As per the standing orders, we will first go for a mover of the recommendation as written in the agenda. Is there a mover of the RA recommendation? It is moved. Mayor, then Mays. May? Is it Mayes or Mays?
Mays.
Mays, thank you. Is there a seconder? It is seconded Leo Donoghue. Would the mover like to speak to the recommendation?
No, I'll reserve. Thank you.
Thank you. Would the seconder like to speak?
Simply that I think within the existing planning framework, this fits very nicely. It's located in that area that's identified for medical uses. I think this is a very worthwhile project, very worthwhile, and I'm actually going to make a suggestion.
Would you like to move the amendment?
Yes, I would like to amend the recommendation by deleting the requirement for conditions here.
Yes, it is. The member, Leo Donoghue, is moving Amendment 1, deletion of condition 10, public art. Is there a seconder for that amendment? I will second that amendment. Would you like to speak to the amendment?
Look, I just think in this case, we can make an exception to the requirement for public art. This is basically a charity-based activity, and yes, it is. It's fulfilling a much needed residential purpose. And I think that it's quite onerous to require public art. Number one, it's going to read as a residential building. So I'm really not sure what purpose public art will give. It's also a use that there'll be privacy issues around that, security. I just don't think that public art in this instance is justified. And I'm also conscious of the fact that it's a charity-based activity. So for those reasons, I'm not going to be supporting that requirement.
Thank you. I will speak as the seconder. I would note and put on record that my support of deletion of the condition has nothing to do with whether or not outside my anywhere else associated with the proposal. My reasons are the site is essentially an existing built form that is being refurbished. The primary activity within that built form is for accommodation purposes. To a degree residential, and they are living at site, albeit for up to 12 months. There is support services which support the new mothers with babies. Those are significant considerations for me in the context of this proposal, particularly that it is an existing built form previously used as residential and is continuing to operate as residential. I do note the uniqueness around this form of activity, particularly in the context of not wanting to draw attention. I would also indicate that given the extent of the modifications, primarily around built form, that this is not necessary for public art and it is a refurbishment of the existing building. So those are my reasons for the amendment to the condition. Are there any other speakers on amendment 1? Yes.
I understand the officers applying the policy strictly in accordance with its wording, but I would just like to say that I agree with what's been said. The nature of this proposal is a refurbishment essentially of a building, and it does, despite the land use category, it does fulfill primarily a residential function. I do want to add that I'm very wary of suggesting that the addition of this should be also because the charitable space I think that's very long back on go down in this kind of matter. But I do agree that it really doesn't seem to me to a reasonable planning purpose. So I'm supportive of the
Thank you. Any other speakers on amendment 1? If there are no other speakers on amendment 1, we move back to the move for right of reply and closing debate on amendment 1. We are going to the vote on amendment 1, deletion of condition 10. All those in favour? Again? Sorry, all those in favour? Is carried unanimously for the minute taker. We move back to the substantive motion. Member Leo Donovan, would you like to speak?
Well, I don't have much more to add. I think I said it because I think this is such a worthwhile proposal, and I probably shouldn't go into the areas of charitable works, but look, I think it fits in very nicely into the existing streetscape work, and I think it's should wholeheartedly be supported.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers on the motion? Yes.
Simply that I noted that there's a proposed addendum to the recommendation, which seems to be a matter of accuracy of wording. So I'd be happy to move that as
what is being moved for the minute taker is amendment 2. It is being moved by Member Brian Curtis. It refers to modification or correction, is in fact a correction in the RA as provided in the additional material, which indicates the reference should be community purpose, not public purpose, and the DAP reference number. So those two corrections are being moved onto the table. Is there a seconder for that aspect? It is seconded. Member Lee O'Donoghue. Maybe would you like to speak any further? Seconder like to speak to it?
No.
Are there any other speakers on amendment 2? If not, we'll go straight back to the mover. I assume there is no right further. We're going straight to the vote on that correction. All those in favour? Is carried unanimously for the minute taker. We move back to the agenda. Would you like to speak?
as far as the substantive recommendation has amended, no, I believe this is this seems to be a great way to reintroduce some activity in that building and utilize it for this building worthwhile. So happy with the design and the
Thank you. Any other speakers? I will speak to the substantive motion. The proposal is an excellent use of an existing building. It's good to see a refurbishment of a building. The type of use is consistent with the mix of activities in the area in terms of sort of mix of health and care facilities in the area, and it is appropriate in the context of the site. I also think it is a good, an excellent community purpose for use in a particular location with good access. Those are my comments. Are there any other speakers? If not, we move back to the mover for right of reply and close the debate.
I'll reserve. Thank you.
Thank you. We are now going to the vote members. All those in favour? Is carried unanimously for the minute taker. We move back to the agenda. There are no Form 2 applications in relation to Part C. There are no SAT reconsiderations. I have no comments to make in relation to the SAT applications. Is there any general business from members? There's no general business. I close the meeting at 11:17 a.m. Thank you for your attendance.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.